All right, I am very excited and happy and grateful and appreciative to be with everybody here, especially grateful and appreciative to be with John and Kathy, two great friends of ours who are joining us. They're on either side of me. I don't know, I think it looks like that to you guys, but to me, I see you like this. On either side of me tonight, Angel on my left, Angel on my right. And we've done a lot of events together over the years, a lot of retreats together over the years. We're actually doing an event, we're just talking about a month from tonight in Atlanta. And we'll tell you more about that in a bit. But yeah, it's always great to get together, co-create together. It's beautiful synergy in what we do together. And if you're here live, you can use the chat box to participate. You can also raise your proverbial hand, your digital hands, and participate. There's also a Patreon page I started to support this work. It's not the most beautiful thing yet. We'll get that better and better, but it is functional and it does work and it is appreciated. So you can become a monthly supporter of us here, of the circle here, by being a contributor to the Patreon page. I think I can multitask and put that in the chat box here. And I always like to share what the intention is. I've been getting a lot of great feedback from people. This is sort of an innovative thing. John is what I call my accountability partner. So he's been hearing me talk about this project idea for quite a while. It's just a vision I had, an idea I had, and it's been great. It's been a great way to connect both alive and then people can hear it later in a podcast form and video form. We get a lot of great feedback. And the intention, the mission statement is really simple. It's to support humanity to transcend suffering. That's the mission statement. And that's what we're intending to do every time we come here together and share things that I've learned, that I've discovered, whether it's me personally, my own personal path, or the people that I've coached, people that I've worked with, what I've seen in them, other people in the circle share their stories, they ask questions. So we're teaching and learning together. And it's great to have John and Kathy with us tonight and share their wisdom with us. And one of the things that's really inspiring about them, similar to Annie and I, they are living their purpose and they are living their purpose together and they're supporting themselves financially in living that purpose. And I think that's something that a lot of people aspire to and a lot of people haven't yet manifested in their lives. In other words, people are living lives that they're doing things that they don't really like or don't really enjoy, or they're just trying to get by. They're doing it to support themselves in the 3D, make money financially. And there's a time and a place for everything. So it's not to say that what you're doing is necessarily wrong. It's just to say that you know inside yourself if it's wrong or not. So that's the thing to kind of tune into and listen for. And maybe there's fears or there's blocks. If you know you're supposed to be living a life that you're not, it could be in your work, it could be in your purpose, it could be in your business, it could be in a relationship, it could be where you live, it could be a whole variety of different things, right? But if you're living a life that's not in alignment for you, maybe we could give you some support and some insight tonight in how to do that. So I wanted to ask you guys, John and Kat, first of all, hello, great to have you here. And
Hello. Great to
I
be here,
wanted to
brother.
I wanted to ask you guys how you manifested the life that you're living now. Because I've known you for a long time and I know that it wasn't always that way for you. You had different jobs and different things that you were doing that weren't aligned with your highest purpose. For those that don't know, John is a world-class musician and artist in the musical form, also a teacher and coach, and leads different sorts of workshops and is a speaker. And Kathy's done some speaking engagements as well and led some retreats as well. So that's what they're living now. That's what they're doing. But I know it wasn't always that way for you guys. So where were you at before, and how did you move out of that to where you are now?
You want to go first, Kathy?
Sure, baby. Brian, thanks so much for having us. It's always
Welcome.
so wonderful to
Yes.
see you. You know, it's interesting when I reflect on where we were before. You know, when we first met, I was running the third largest music conference in the country. And even though I loved working with artists, I was working for someone else's vision, you know. And at in the beginning, I really loved, I managed it and I just did what I was supposed to do. And you know, it's really amazing when I think about it now, how we've come so full circle to creating circle. We're on the circle, sorry, to creating our events where I'm using a lot of those skills, but these are our events. Like we are able to come together and think about what we want to create for us and others. And with that intention of raising the vibration, that's for me, raising the vibration of the world. So, you know, we started both in the music business. John as an artist, me with a degree in music management and running a big music conference. So we both had the music backgrounds. And you know, I think it took a certain path of trust to eventually say we were ready to kind of let go of the reins of knowing when we were going to get a paycheck, all of those things that we had had for so long, and just say we were ready to step into our own purpose and our own fulfillment and try a whole new way of living. Would that be accurate, baby?
Yeah, very accurate. What's funny is during the highs and lows of, I'll say, pre-trust and post-trust. Pre-trust was when we were chasing whatever we could figure out, right? Based on whatever we had learned, education, society, family, our own thinking, etc. That's what I call the pre-trust phase. And we're doing our best and hearing things and trying to put them into place, but it was just a different experience to me where we didn't have something greater to guide us. We were trying, but didn't quite know how to connect and follow it yet. Um, and so during that time, there was a lot of uncertainty, double guessing ourselves, just so much stuff, a lot of suffering, but a lot of highs, some great times, some fantastic times, right? Um, the post trust phase was when we finally broke through and started tapping into that ability to hear this navigating power or this guidance, God, genius on demand, whatever you want to call it. That's my favorite acronym, right?
You just talked about.
um,
Love that.
yeah, but to get to finally break through and be able to connect on demand and get guidance, and man, we were like every day doing it, like just okay, what about this? What about that? And getting all these answers and letting that guide us. After that, it became a matter of choice, of consciously choosing whether to seek that and trust or whether to keep going back to our own ways. And sometimes you forget and you go back and forth. But the post trust phase for us, to me, has had the most fulfillment because it's been the most aligned with why we're here. And now it's transformed what we're doing instead of like, I mean, don't get a great time touring the world, top 10 Billboard single, rock star. It's playing in front of 10,000 people with Puddle of Mud, Kid Rock, Journey, Live, all these artists I got to play with. I threw in Better Than Ezra in there just to name drop. you know, but we got to play with some cool artists. It was awesome. I'm telling you, it wasn't as fulfilling as what I do now. It just wasn't. Because we're serving in a different capacity. And yeah, there were some highs, but this has expanded beyond that. And it's more fulfillment for us versus fulfillment for me, or fulfillment. And when I say us, I mean for all, like not some separate, just me and Kathy or whatever, like what we're doing and we're serving through that trust in a way that fulfills us, fulfills others, fulfills everybody we serve, and brings us all, I guess, to remembering that we all have the choice and we all have the power. We all have that ability to connect and live a life of trust versus confusion, struggle, and suffering. So I love your mission, like you said, assisting people in that way, the mission of this, to be able to release the suffering. That's ideal. So yeah, the way it looks now is a continual practice of consciously choosing trust, even when things don't line up the way we want them to, right? Because we can't control that. We can't. All we can control is: are we going to trust? Are we going to choose to move forward in that way and let go of the suffering, and or are we going to resist, not listen, not trust, and go back to the suffering? You know. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, let's talk about the pre-trust and the post-trust a little bit more.
Yeah.
So is how does that trust, is there a way you can articulate how that came into being?
Yeah, I think for both of us, we it was crashing and burning. We both had some
Trial and
great,
error.
some yeah, crash and burn, but some great crash and burn stories. Like like your typical, oh wow, I thought I had it all and it burnt to the ground, or I thought this and found out no, or the rug was pulled from under me. Those wake up stories of holy crap, I need to figure this out. So we've both been blessed with those. Those little gifts life will send you to smack you in the face and be like, no, this is not actually what you thought it was, or no, you actually don't have your stuff together and you need to wake up. So both of us, I think, have unique stories in one way, but then the same in others. And, like I had a complete mental breakdown, was in the hospital as a 18-year-old in school, end up homeless for a little bit during the college ventures, had lost 2 scholarships, felt like a failure, blah, 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 right? Went to dream schools. And those experiences were going by my own thinking, my own understanding, and my own effort. And I hadn't really broken through and connected to that North Star. And so it was just, trying and nothing working and crash and burn, and finally realizing, whoa, having that disconnect from the way I had been going mentally, and, the stress, everything just helped me wake up. And that's when I began to seek. Now, the only thing I really trusted at that time was there's got to be something and I got to find it. But I didn't, you know, I couldn't say I had that connection yet. I was just trying and practicing, and I was putting more trust in beliefs than I was in the thing itself, right? Because that's all I knew. I mean, it's like, okay, this isn't working and this isn't work. Let me try this belief. Let me practice that. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try this other belief. And, I kept doing that and finally found what works. And thank God that was the post that led to post trust of even in that time, what Kathy and I got together, and we did it together. Really, I'd realized I hated who I'd become emotionally. I couldn't control myself. I was a wreck after some business meeting we had together with someone, and I was like, you got to show me what works, because I can't go back to the stuff I've done. I just prayed. I said, show me what works, and that led to things that I kind of knew in the back of my mind, but led to creating awareness, led to meditation, led to changing the neural pathways, changing the way I thought, and in uncovering and excavating or eliminating the different patterns that were causing a lot of the problems and dysfunction. So that's I guess a little illumination from me. Love to hear what Kathy would say to that.
I would say mine is almost the opposite, where uh, the post trust for me was about stepping into trusting the unknown, where I have just always been very practical. I'm a Taurus. And, I kind of had to see before the step that I was going to take. Like, I'd have to see where I'm going. And I was pretty comfortable like that. I was pretty comfortable just doing what I know. And I feel like John kind of came into my life to help me be willing to get uncomfortable, be willing to step out of my comfort zone, which it's kind of, I mean, everybody loves to be in their comfort zone, but I really love to be in my comfort zone. So I just felt like the having the ability to say yes to things that we're hearing, spiritually, to go for, and I can't see how it's going to work out. I don't know how it's going to come together. And we've faced that many times. And, we'll meditate and we'll hear and we'll do it anyway, even though it's uncertain. That I've learned to trust the unknown. I've learned to trust that inner guidance. And that has been a huge shift for me from the pre to the post. And
But
then,
may I ask something though?
yep.
But what led to that, would you agree, was putting your trust in what you thought was known and it falling apart? Because before we met, that like we when we came together, we actually took a big leap in the unknown, even to have this relationship. Like it was against all all logic, but something was propelling us like, wow, this might to take a chance. And 20 plus years later, we're here still. But prior to that, and maybe it's just the way I saw it, but I felt like prior to that, you had put your trust into something that just didn't work. And you thought you knew, but it was really the unknown pretending to be the known, you know?
That is a good point because, what seemed to be practical did fall apart. I put my trust in my then husband and my life that I thought I was serving, and then all of that turned out to be not what I thought it was. So I kind of, lost everything and was building back up. And in that building process, got new tools. John and I created the tools together. Really, it didn't start off that way. We were both kind of a mess, and over time together,
A
um,
beautiful mess.
learned to be very, very conscious about what we were creating, um, thinking about what we wanted to create instead of just stepping into it. And you taught us a lot of that too, Brian, when we worked with you doing the big glow early on. There was this generosity that came through you that kind of allowed us to say, what, we can give and just be open to what comes back, as opposed to I'm giving this to get that. Like it changed the transaction. And then it changed the transaction in our lives with each other. So yes, I'm definitely had to kind of break down. You're right, from what I thought was super comfortable, and now I'm much more comfortable with the uncomfortable. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I like that. I like the little back and forth there, a little pushback by prodding further by John, deeper. I love
That's
that.
kind of the nature of our relationship, isn't it? It's a lot of that. And
So
she helps me have fun.
let me tell you what I heard, because I think it's a really powerful. So there's the crash and burn. I think that's pretty standard in people's lives. Like I would relate to that in my life as well. And then out of that comes like a humility. So it's like the ego thinks it's got it under control. I'll do it my way. Screw off. I do it how I want to do it. And then it's like, well, this isn't working. I'm burning. I'm crashing and burning. Actually, I need help. And it's like, if there's something or somebody out there, could you please help me right now? I really need help. And it's like then you kind of realize it's like that help was actually always there, but we were like pushing it away, you know? So, and then I think once you like genuinely ask for that help from a place of humility, um, that's how you start to connect with that inner guidance, right? It's like you have to kind of make the space for it and be humble. And the ego has to realize that like the ego's you can't do it yourself. You got to listen to that for that higher guidance. And then I think the part that Kathy brought in is like really key too, because that requires embracing the unknown. Because you're gonna get guidance that's like, what? Huh? What do you mean? I don't understand. But it's like you learn to just like follow the guidance and not get caught in the way you think it's supposed to be. And I think that's when the real miracles happen. And it's like the more you kind of, at first it's like, you might think you're like crazy, or you think you're scared, or other people think you're crazy. They might still think we're crazy, but the point is like, I think the more that you do it and you start seeing the results, then the trust starts to like, just like any other relationship, the trust starts to strengthen. And it's like, okay, if I follow this guidance, miraculous things do happen, even if it's not the way I thought it was going to be, or maybe there's moments where I have my doubts, you know, but I'm learning to like trust this inner guidance and strengthen it and deepen it and listen with deepened trust.
What's funny, in addition to what you just said, is following the guidance. You want it to look like, oh, if I follow the guide, if I surrender, I won't have to go through pain anymore. I won't have to lose anything, right?
Right.
Everything's going to unfold perfectly,
Yeah.
and I won't have to witness things not happening that I want to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not what it means at all. The reality is, like even financially, if I listen to the guidance and follow and go the way I'm supposed to go, my financial life will completely turn around and change for the better, and I will be super prosperous. Actually, there's great stories like Job that tell you that's not the case. Sometimes you got to experience things to show you what you're choosing and what you're creating. When we first started trusting big time, we went through different things financially. And I remember going to one of our lowest points by trusting financially, one of our lowest points. And I'm like, why are you bringing us here? Why are we going through this? It's like, so you can know where the power really comes from. It's not your bank account. It's not all this other stuff. It's inside. Your security, where does it come from? So to expose, where do you choose to place your faith? Right? That was such a powerful lesson. So I only say that to say, um, you just can't, like a lot of times it's easy to look at someone's prosperity and be like, wow, they're blessed by God and I'm not. Right? It's like, no, I learned that the hard way. I'm I'm blessed by God by surrendering, aligning, and listening, and that does not mean the financial bank account is going to prove that. Only I can prove that within through that surrender and listening. But the other part of it I do love is that the the things that are most meaningful do come. The finances, the different things, it may come in ways we don't like, and doesn't always show up in the ways we would prefer, but they come and then it shows you can succeed in building whatever you want. It just needs to happen in a certain way, vibrationally, in consciousness first, and then the divine all gets to decide how that's reflected, how your consciousness and the programs that you have inside, what three-dimensional printout is that going to create? That's up to the universe, but you can kind of like do the coding, if you will, right? So that's what we've been focusing on.
I'd love to add that I think the lesson of unattachment has really been huge for us, and we'll remind each other, like we might get guidance to do something and you have an idea, oh, it means, like I really wanted to have a whale watching experience and it had been a long time dream. I really wanted to connect with them, and then we didn't know how it was going to show up, so we're following guidance and we got to create a retreat around it, our conscious creators retreat. We were going to do it in Mexico and I was all connected to that. Then it ended up leading to Costa Rica. And so like you have this idea, this is what it's going to be, then you have to be unattached. And we continue to learn that lesson. It could be, oh, John's got this big opportunity that he's going to learn how to do this great marketing thing. And the first time I'm thinking, oh, it's going to make us a lot of money. And then I have to go, wait a second. It does not necessarily mean that. It could be for the value that he gains. It could be for the people that he connects to, just really releasing we'll say John's limited condition thinking, which I know is a phrase he uses a lot, and be connected to the outcome in the way that it's supposed to show up, and just kind of enjoy the ride as opposed to holding on to it's supposed to be a certain way. We've learned that lesson many times, but I feel like it's coming easier and easier as we remind each other. Now, wait a second, don't get too attached. Let's just follow it, do it, and see how it turns out.
Yeah, totally. That's why I've been drawing such inspiration from Jesus's life story. Is like, you look at his life and you're like, man, that didn't go well. From a certain perspective, you can say like, oh, he followed his guidance and it went bad, for him. But it's like, that's not the point. It's like the deeper you go in, it's about being connected within. It's about the unification within to God, to that inner guides, to the creator. And then what happens externally becomes less and less important. So I think like he kind of was in this transcendent state where he was in the limitless, as you would say, limitless light and love, regardless of what was happening externally, and it's like, I think, in that consciousness, like everything you do is really a gift. It's not, it's not really for your own ego, so it's like everything is kind of like an offering of love to the world, and then you're just you're trusting, you know you're trusting that you're trusting, but also I think there's it's really like in the moment itself. Because if you think of like what do people really want, what do people really long for, and I think other people have said this certainly before me, is like what people really want is love. you know I think there's a saying like everything is either, I think they say like it's a gift of love or a call for love, you know, right? So somebody may do something and you're like, why did they do that? Well, it's like something that may seem like malicious or something like that. And it's a person that's hurting, and there's a person that's, in their own distorted way trying to act out to get the love that they don't feel like they have. So I think like people are definitely, as the song goes, looking for love in all the wrong places. Um, but on this deeper level, it's like this realization of like that love, that infinite love is available to us now and resides inside us now. And like, it's not about trying to get it. It's really about emanating it.
You just echoed something I was just talking about. No surprise there. That reminds me of desire and the definition we received about desire being the actual frequencies that the source, the essence of us wants to experience amplified. So it's a desire is a call to amplify these frequencies, right? And we get to choose how we do it, whether we project or whether we go within, amplify, however we do it. We get to choose. So let's just say there's a desire to be connected to the sacred. Well, those are frequencies we want to amplify. So we go to church, or we meditate, or we, you know, do some binaural beats or whatever it is. And we amplify those wonderful frequencies that are always there. It's just what's going to work for us, what path will work for us to amplify them so we can fulfill or fully feel them, right? So as we do that work, what I've noticed is often the desire is the thing we look at and completely give the amplification power away to something, right? Make it something out there, make it something we don't have. We immediately create this gap of separation when really doesn't matter what we choose to amplify it as long as we can amplify it, right? But then if we create the gap of separation and it's out there, we find ourselves chasing the solution when all along the solution was us, right? That's when people say we give away our power, right? So going back to what you were saying earlier, now I almost lost the thought, but what it reminds me of is if we can honor the fact that whatever comes up does like simple as that. Any desire has is of God. The carnal mind will make it mean something that is not necessarily of God, right? Again, oh, I'm angry. I'm gonna hurt someone. The desire underneath that is the expression of or call for love. It wants to feel whole. It wants to feel healed. It wants to feel connected, but it didn't feel it and it made something mean something that says this and now it wants back, right? But that's the heart or the desire underneath all of that meaning that we project and screw up is just what you said, love. It's a call for love, whether it's expression, whether it's amplifying and being, whether it's that sense of healing and wholeness and that relief, however it wants to express, that's of God, that's sacred, right? And if we can if we can get rid of all the stuff that we put on top of it and get it all confused, like Kathy was saying, limited condition thinking, projection, all this stuff, the more we release that, the more we can get in touch with that beautiful flow with those desires and honor them and fulfill them. And not that it's nothing wrong with saying, oh my God, I have this desire. Ooh, chocolate. That's pleasurable. Nothing wrong with that, you know? It's do you, but don't create suffering because you can't get something that you're projecting to be the answer. Because once you get it, you probably gonna find out, oh, that wasn't actually the answer after all. It was probably good I didn't have it.
It's like,
You know,
don't
that whole
create
time.
suffering because you can't get something that you already are.
Bingo, bingo. Well said.
Yeah. Talk to us about how you tap into the guidance. You know, I know knowing you very well, you'll check in, right? Because if you don't mind sharing just a little bit about like what that process is like, or again, I know these things are hard to articulate in words, but if you can articulate it.
Kathy's so good at remembering the process and how we like the journey. Not to need to tell the whole story, but like I often forget, oh yeah, we came from here to there, and she'll remind me. So I'd love her to give the how we developed it if you're open to it.
Sure. So, I love that he brought that up because oftentimes, he'll just say, well, just check into people or, and it's like the process that he went through to be able to get that clear on just asking a question and getting an answer, really started with his innate desire to connect to God one-on-one. I don't know that
Nice.
everybody has that desire. Even from a kid,
Yeah, that's great.
John wanted to hear from the source. He didn't want to, the Bible tells him or his mom tells him, he really wanted to hear direct. And I think that fueled him as we started to run up against things in the music business and things in our lives that he was really suffering about. And he just kind of stepped into, when he steps into something, he steps in big, and he steps into meditation, and he steps into there was Holocene and different things he was listening to, a lot of things to help him get connected. That was his goal, to get connected. He would literally, be having Kundalini experiences where he's like rolling around. I talk about thinking, whether something was evil or scary or what. I mean, it was transforming him physically. And I'm probably only the only person that ever witnessed it, and just really had all these blocks to release that this is wrong, or you can't connect to God directly. So there was a process of years, at least a year or two, where he was going through this desire and what is it going to take. So it took discipline, and then just after this amount of time, it was Abraham Hicks. We started to find out about that book, and we decided to, let's see if we can do what they're doing. Abraham and Jerry, right? If you're familiar with Abraham Hicks. And so we sat back to back, and we meditated, and we started to ask these questions. And even that was a process. He would get these answers like, he's trying to write letters like this, and I'm writing them down letter by letter. It would take like 30 minutes to get a sentence. It was painstaking. And then he asked, can it be easier? So there was this process where then he would start hearing words. So it was really just getting the blocks out of the way, practicing it, discipline, to where now years later, he writes books that way, songs that way, just is able to, through practice, connect, get direct answers. And the miracle was he would get these answers, and then we would see it in Michael Beckwith or Deepak. People are bringing through that same wording, the same ideas that we had never even heard of before. So it was like, I think we needed to know that this was really coming from a higher power, not his ego, really the God, the genius on demand. So it was a process, and it took a lot of time. But now John teaches others how to do it without having to go through everything he went through. So he's that expert now, where he can say, okay, if you do these things, you can open up to hearing and really trusting your own divine guidance.
Well said. Well said. So yeah, I can only add like maybe two things to that. Oh, you pretty much captured everything I was thinking and more. Um, the the thing I do remember from probably the standpoint that I was experiencing was just like Kathy said earlier, stepping into the unknown and overcoming the fear. Because when the first thing that happened to me was the Kundalini energy rising, and then I got like this, couldn't swallow, and it was just this weird thing that was happening that was unexpected in the middle of me meditating. That was the first time I'd ever had energy start to move in my body, and I'm like, what is, I thought it was a demon. I didn't know what was going on. So I'm calling out to Jesus, help, what's going on? And then nothing really happened. I could swallow again, and I'm like, okay, let me look this up. And then I learned about, oh, it's an energy. Oh, okay. And then I began to let it flow. And intuitively, I started to picking up on things. And that energy, that source energy, Kundalini, whatever you want to call it, it helps unblock things. It helps remove the stuff so that's in the way of that natural flow of harmony with vibration and frequency, etc. Right? So that opening is what I begin to. Early on, I used to call it energy work. When Kathy would say, "I'm flipping all over the place," and all I was doing was letting the energy do what it wanted to, and I'd be all over the place. I mean, just doing wild things, and we'd be asking. Kathy would be like, "Okay, if I want to connect, do I got to do all of that?" The answer would be like, "No, you don't have to do that. John definitely needs this." So, it's like she said, I had a lot to release and get rid of and do, but the beautiful part of that work is when we finally got to the point like she was describing where I was like, look, we can't be sitting here for half an hour just getting a sentence. Can you give me something easier? The next day the energy came up and it unlocked my mouth, and I remember it feeling like a giant cramp moving through my body, like, oh, and then I began to speak words and we recorded, and that made it so much easier. I was like, thank you, thank you. But what I learned from that is you can ask. Like, if this ain't working, ask. Ask for what does work. You don't have because you don't ask, right? It's like you don't find because you don't seek. You don't the door doesn't open because you ain't knocking. You got to do it, you know? So that's been a grateful for those lessons of just seeing, yes, you can. And like Kathy said, when the desire to suffer, everybody has a desire to suffer, otherwise we wouldn't incarnate. That's how I hear it anyway. Take that however you want. But when the desire to suffer is eclipsed by the desire to opt out of suffering, we find a way. We seek and find.
Beautiful. Brandon Lee, I've seen you put something in the chat. Do you want to just ask the question?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you think that you would have been able to express that or tap into that highest potential without Kathy creating space? Or do you think that the combination of the power of the masculine and the feminine coming together to create that safe space allowed that transmutation to occur?
Great question. And I'll answer it differently without a yes or no. Is our coming together was a catalyst and a integral ingredient of giving me the desire to change, both in ways we both would have liked to have avoided and in ways that were very consciously awakening and empowering. Like the mistakes that I made early on were wake up calls, but also the choices I made to listen to what she was saying. And she was very positive and could see the good in me beyond what I did. Right. And I would try to be convincing her, no, you don't know me. I've done this. And I told her all my quote sins, you know, and for some reason she still would see the good in me. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. It made me second guess everything I've been taught, you know, but I needed to choose differently if I was ever going to step into who I'm here to be. So she was a big mirror for me to see my God self, my divine self, being a child of God, accepting that and stepping into, okay, what is the problem here? And let me just underscore one other thing was the motivation in having our relationship made me want to change as well. It's almost like when you have a baby, or when you find someone that there was a chemical spiritual connection between us. I don't mean sexual, I mean like a literal, all we were doing was dancing, and I felt like I was in a celestial freaking vortex of bliss and divinity and angelic singing or something. Like time stopped and I'm like, what is happening? This, I don't understand what is going on right now. Right. So it was a divine appointment to help me wake up. And for both of us, I think. But like we were told, we were twin flames or whatever. Um, and that's I think people romanticize that. It's not that romantic. It's more like a loving kick in the butt. You know, it's very loving. No, I'm kidding. It can be romantic too, but but it's yeah, we just been without us coming together. I don't know what would have happened, but I know it was an integral part of what needed to happen for both of us to move to where we were or where we are. I'll say. Good question though.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's a great question. And I've I see two components for me when you're on this path. If you're on this path, then there could be a whole different bunch of different criteria that people have for relationships. But if you are on this path, I think there's two criteria to me. And like the one is that the person you're coming together with, that you're learning and growing and awakening in consciousness together. You know, you're opening and awakening into God together. And your relational dynamic supports that. And like, you know, I put this quote in here: the purpose of a relationship is not to make you happy, but to make you conscious. By great line by Eckhart Tolle.
That's
And I,
you should just answer first with like these one sentence answers that sum up everything I was saying.
no, but you did hit it though. It's like there's this idea that like, oh, if I just, you know, meet the right person, everything will be, you know, will be in fairy tale world and everything's gonna be perfect and I'll be happy all the time. And I think if you meet somebody, for the truth is like if you meet somebody that's really conscious and awake, it's gonna challenge you, you know. It's gonna be like, oh, I gotta step up my game, you know. So sometimes that's why it's, you know, we've talked about this a little bit, Brandon Lynn. Sometimes it feels you can get into a comfort zone where it feels more comfortable to have somebody that's in a lower vibration, because then it makes you feel like you're the big shot, you know. But she's shaking her head.
That's so
But
good, brother. Yeah.
but yeah, like if it's like, oh, I want this man who's like so spiritual and so awake, and it's like, okay, but like they can challenge you to like step into that greater place inside yourself, or women, of course, either way. And then I think the other thing is the next level is like to be on purpose together and being a benefit to the world together. When you have those two components, you're like, oh yeah, this is like what it's about, you
I
know.
think I'm getting a little too comfortable being alone.
You're too comfortable being alone.
That's the thing, and that I just can't. I am I have been more fearful of opening up to just anything.
Mhm.
And it's almost like accepting being alone in my space with God.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I won't accept anything other than that level.
Mhm.
But I think I've hermited to a point where I'm feeling stifled more than getting out. It's like, is this world sanitary? No, you know, I'll just focus in my own space, in my own place with me and God and my cat.
Yeah.
And raise my young man to be a good young man. And but I know that that limits growth. So Thank you guys for answering that question. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I'd love to say something to that. I think the willingness to get out of your comfort zone, even in that situation, because you don't know what's coming. I mean, this man that you see right here, he was not the conscious man when I met him. And I remember what he asked me what I desired from the relationship. And I had said, I wanted to get on a path to God together. And in my mind, I thought he was going to become a Catholic. I was a Catholic at the time. I was like, oh, I want to get on a path to God together. We'll get married in a Catholic church, have little Catholic kids. That was what I thought. But that's not what happened. And but that statement, I want to get on a path to God together. We are so clearly on a path to God together, completely different than I ever thought it would be. So it required me getting out of my comfort zone and required letting go of attachment to how it was going to show up. So it was just like, you thinking about what you desire and then releasing the attachment to how it shows up. It might surprise you. Life might surprise you.
And that love that you said that, because even what you just described are the principles we keep seeing. And it's such a good reminder for me of that, being intentional in what we create and being intentional in what we choose, even when it's not in front of us, right? Meaning, both of us did our lists and got into what would the ideal look like? And we got really clear and we felt into it. And 3 days later, she popped up on my radar after I'd done that exercise, right? I kind of intuitively, I didn't know about vibration and frequency and, and matching internally the state of, all that stuff, being a vibrational man. I didn't know any of that stuff, any of that lingo. I wasn't even, quote, spiritual. I was more religious than anything and just had rejected all of that. However, intuitively, I was following this path and came up with this process that clarified these intentions. I didn't call it that. I was just doing pros and cons list, trying to figure out what the hell I wanted in the relationship to get clear. I'd heard about it in the Army. It's like, okay, let me try that. And I intuitively thought, what's the opposite of all the crap I don't like on this list? What would the opposite of be? I don't like the relationships where there's drug problems and alcoholic. What is the opposite? Ooh, balance. Self-discipline and self-control. Ooh, I like that. It's like, what's the opposite of all these other things, And next thing you know, I got this huge, clear list of the things I wanted to create. 3 days later, well, skip the spot. After the list, I felt into the fact that, wow, what I always dreamed of as a kid was magic would happen. And literally time would stop. Everything I described before, like when we met, like that would happen. 3 days later, that's when it happened. We're on a dance floor and it was just, like I said, transcendent when it happened. And I didn't even believe that could happen. So I don't even think you have to believe it. I honestly don't, because I had zero belief. And 3 days later, it manifests. And we've been together ever since, right? Does that mean you got to believe? I think belief is a stepping stone. John 3:16, believe shall not perish, have everlasting life. 5 chapters later, if you've ever heard me talk about this, I love this. John 3:16, 5 chapters later, you got John 8, and here's Jesus talking to the Jews that believe him. Great, congratulations, guys. The truth, you got to hold to my teachings. Then you'll know, and the truth will set you free. Right now, you just believe, right? But you got some practicing to do to get to knowing. Knowing sets you free from just believing, because belief, there's a gap. You don't know, right? So, well, lucky for us, we had the experience of clarifying things. Still didn't know it was possible. Had a little belief in some things, but the ultimate thing, I had zero belief. I was like, that'll never happen. Boom, happens 3 days later. So lucky for us, it doesn't matter whether you believe. Do the practice. Get clear on your intentions. Feel the vibration. Get the clarity. Screw belief. Do it. See what happens. And it works. It just works that way. It's law. Like, you do that work, you get clear, you activate the frequencies, and it works.
just one quick follow-up on that. 'Cause I think it's so key to mention the way you're laying out the intentions, right? It's like so important to focus on for manifestation, or for listening to the guidance for manifestation, to focus on what you want and not on what you don't want. You know, because so many people, there's a fear, there's a trauma, there's something that happened, and the mind starts going, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And it's so important to just be aware of that and like, yeah, but what do I want? You know, because the guidance is there, but it's almost like I mean, I don't like to use this example, but it's almost like Google or search engine or something. Like it'll give you the answer whatever you ask. So if you're focused on the things you don't want, like the example is a great example. Like one time, just as an experiment, I went to Google and I said, um, I don't want to see a picture of cherries. And I hit the button and it was all pictures of cherries. Right? That's how it
That's
works.
such a great example. Yeah.
So it's like the don't part isn't heard.
Yeah. The funny thing is, too, it's how you focus on them. Like that's what I
Mhm.
learned from mine. Like how you focus on the things you don't want is going to determine what transpires. You can focus on the things you don't want in a way of resisting it, and it persists, right? What you resist persists.
Yeah.
Or giving it attention, like, oh God, I'm afraid, I don't want, like you're
Mhm.
talking about
Yeah.
with this focus of fear, and you're
Mhm.
just feeding it more energy and belief, right?
Mhm.
The other way to focus on it is dismantling it. Okay, wait a minute. What's the opposite of this?
That's what I
Redirection.
liked what you
Use it as
did
a
is you,
hack.
you yeah, you
Yeah,
did the
yeah.
redirection.
And then
Yeah.
some people also focus on those things to figure out where is it coming from, to clarify the real intention. Okay, man, I don't want this anymore in my life. Okay, where's that coming from? Where'd that first occur? Where's that resistance? What's underneath? Oh, it's a feeling of unworthiness, a feeling of, shame or disempowerment and blah blah blah. So using those things. So I guess what I'm getting at is everything that arises in us can be used for something, to create more of what we don't want or create more of what we do. It's how we approach it and the quality of the questions and the exploration that gets us to where we want to be. Like if we can drop down into these more subtle levels and excavate, as one of my friends loves to say, I love that phrase, excavate the gift, because the gift of that resistance, there's something there. Like just because it's up, sometimes we try to bypass it instead of working with it, is what I'm getting at, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else want to ask a question or a comment in the circle here this evening?
Hey guys, thank you for being here. This is great. But what you were just talking about, John, so I'm sitting here and Brian and I talk about this a lot, but I'm just sitting in like a ton of social anxiety, like fear right now. So how would be like a way that I could transcend that to, something better? Because I'm like my heart's beating, my elbows are burning,
Yup,
like,
yup.
and I'm
Dude,
trying to
that's
learn
awesome.
how to work with this to, yeah.
I'll let Kathy, it can't look like Kathy was going to say something too. Were
I
you
just
about to say
I
something?
want to tie in too, John. I want to add
Or
to
what
that
did you?
question. I think
Go
it's
ahead.
I
Go ahead.
just appreciate the question, Jeff. Um, let's tie in when you go to your turn, like as a performer, you're right. Like maybe when you first started, how do you deal with that anxiety if it was there?
No, that's a great, great question. So to this day, I still have triggering or different feelings that come up that you could say feel like anxiety or what have you. Like it'll come up, especially when you're doing something that's out of your comfort zone. Like I think I could be wrong, but I think it's natural, right? Because I think it's teaching your nervous system how to reset. Like when you're going into this place of discomfort and the fears come, there's some limitations, some programming, some conditioning blocks, whatever you want to call it, trauma, whatever that has been like, stay away from this type of environment, right? Because you don't want what happened when it was created to happen again. So it's like, hell no, danger, 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 right? What is it? Stranger danger. We're not familiar with this. And so it's almost like finding those practices that help us bring awareness to what's going on. I feel like there's two schools of it. Well, not two schools, two paths. One is, and you have to figure out, well, probably more than two paths. Let me rephrase that. There's multiple paths. You have to figure out in the moment what's the path that's gonna be the most beneficial, right? So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Getting on stage, just like Brian said. So you getting up stage, going to sing. I've gotten on a stage and blacked out before. I mean, not falling out, but like went blank and been like, holy crap, and the terror of that and the fear. And now this is when I was first beginning or whatever. But even as a performer, have like I'm telling you, crowds of 10,000, not even exaggerating, like huge crowds I've been in front of and just rocked it out and had a blast, been in the flow state and all of that. And then small crowds where I'm nervous, right? Or even big crowds where I'm nervous, whatever. Dealt with that. But it's that ability to, as simple as it sounds, to get present, I would say, with what is arising. Like when that fear is arising, it's like our tendency may be to escape and run away from it. I think one of the answers is the exact opposite, to become present with it, right? And to learn to be comfortable with it, to where it's almost like when we're trying to fight it and run from it, it's our awareness is like doing this weird thing and creating resistance, in almost this state of separation from our present state. I don't want this, it shouldn't be this way, get away from me, da 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 da, and we're running. But when we're present with it, I've used it as fuel before. I've been present with it and just expanded to where this didn't bother me. I've been present with it to where I could shift it and it transmute. I've been present with it where I just transcend it and overcome it. I mean, there's so many different ways, I guess what I'm getting at, when it comes, and your presence helps you see the path through, right? You becoming present with it, and not just that, because sometimes, so when you're present with it, you're breathing, you're being present with whatever's arising. If you create the separation, or if you come into the presence and let it suck you in without holding on to the lifeline, you can get entangled in it, and then you crash and burn, and you're in it for 3 days trying to get out, right? Or whatever. What I call the lifeline is when you get present and you're doing this breathing, the lifeline is actually expanding your awareness to bring the higher spiritual mind into that stuff. Meaning, like, I like the way the Bible says it, you got the mind of God, and the mind of man, or the carnal mind, doesn't understand the mind of the spirit and the spiritual mind, right? The key is bringing the spiritual mind with you to the carnal, right? If you can do that, that's the lifeline. It's like you're holding on to that so you can be in this intensity with this listening to and connection to that divine presence, or that spirit that teaches all things. That's one of my favorite things about it, which is all true. I call it genius. But if you listen and bring that in to that moment of presence, it will guide you on which way and which path to go. Whether it's, oh, you need to transmute, oh, you need to look at your past, oh, you need to be present with where this first came from, oh, whatever. And sometimes you need help. It's like you need a spotter, because it's like going to the gym. Okay, if you want to break through what you've ever been able to do in the past, do people typically do that alone? Heck no. Most guys who want to get bigger than they've ever been get a coach, a spotter, some workout partners, accountability partners, mentors, all kinds of stuff, They get help. And I feel like that's the other side of it, like getting that help to, if you're finding that you're trying to listen and bring the lifeline in and transform it or transcend it yourself, you're not getting as far. Getting help with those who can assist. I've had to do that still. I still have a guy I go to, friends, accountability partners, and freaking therapists to be like, look, man, now I hit this new threshold financially. Can you help me overcome it? Not because I'm struggling, it's because I want to expand, whatever it is. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you so much.
I got this quote here
Any group.
from my book. Anxiety and excitement are the exact same energy channeled in a different way, right? So it's like when you come into unknown situation, and especially an unknown situation where it feels like, oh, this could be a big moment or this could be pivotal, it's like John said, it's natural to feel like anxiety, but it's really just like a rush of energy. So you can if you're present, you can channel it and be like, oh, I'm really excited about this moment. So it's like, instead of like, so it's basically like you can kind of tighten oh, there's so much energy, I'm tightening, or there's so much energy, I'm using the energy, I'm channeling the energy, and I'm putting it into the song, or into the speech, or into the date, or whatever it is. I'm instead of closing down on the energy, I'm bringing it forward. And then we talked about exposure therapy too, like like you asking that question. There was a lot of anxiety, and then the second time you ask it, next time, then maybe a little bit less, and then maybe it'll be a little bit less, and it's like you just keep putting yourself out there, and and you transcend it over
Hey, I
time.
have
What's up,
go
brother?
ahead, John.
I was just gonna say real quick. No, you
Okay.
first.
All right, so I just had a very intense encounter on Tuesday, dealing with something where I was going into it, a lot of anxiety, like even chest pain, like panic attack feeling, sweaty palms, really nervous, and something that I've noticed that's really helped me out going into situations like that is, first thing, like when it's time for me to speak or share, is I say, I am very uncomfortable right now. This is not a good situation for me. I'm going to do the best I can. And that releases, just saying that and admitting that to everybody, and that level of vulnerability, it like releases so much pressure and so much tension, man, and just opens up. And then I was able to flow and just flow right through it. And it felt really good. So that's been one thing that I've noticed that always works for me, is just sharing that first thing and getting it out there. Because truth is, everybody's in that shape. You're not alone. I'm not the only one feeling like that. And it's okay to feel like that, even if I am the only one feeling like that. And I think when you share that, you get support and compassion. I think people have compassion for that.
That's great, brother. Yeah, love that. So you basically exemplified what I was just gonna share is it's often finding those practices that work for you that are part of the journey and part of the solution, right? Meaning, like, you may not have them, but there's something in the journey of finding the practices in itself that is a necessary ingredient. Like, you're not supposed. It's almost like what is it called? Where you get those hints and you look for clues. What is that called? Treasure hunts or something like that. Yeah, yeah. Whether
Like
I
a
think it's
word
something.
search. Like a word search?
No, like
Word could
a
be
Scavenger hunt.
scavenger hunt.
scavenger hunt.
There
That's
you
what I
go.
was trying
Okay.
to say. Yes, thank you, thank you.
Do I
So
get a
the
prize?
scavenger hunt. Yes, you do. Me, hi. I'll be back here in a minute. I'm messing with you, but yeah, you get the clue, and then you got to go find it, right? I feel like that's life in a lot of ways, where the journey to find the practice that works for you is part of the adventure, but not in some um, punishing or sadomasochistic way. Oh, I gotta suffer to go find a solution, and that's supposed to be fun. Not like that. More so like, oh, the journey is what's strengthening me. Oh, the climb is where I build the muscle. Oh, the search is where I build the discipline and the willpower. So when I have the practice, I can step into this. It's like this necessary part that strengthens your wings. So when you jump, you can fly, right? Like you gotta go through finding those practices and trying to get these gifts that experience and that the journey itself bring. So we learned that at some point, and I remember just being like, don't feel bad that these things come up. Those are the opportunities that send you on the journey. And then you're on the hero's journey, you find the solution, and now you're sharing it with somebody else. And they're like, holy cow, I've been looking for that. That's awesome. And you get to be like the hero all of a sudden. Had you skipped the journey, probably wouldn't be able to share it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, reflections? And he says, yes, I love that, John. You get to a point where when those energies arise, you can say thank you to it because there's gems to be found within there. Amen. Jacob says, breaking it down, be present with it. Often the more you become present, then it disappears. Yeah, it's like these parts of us, they just want to be, a lot of times just want to be acknowledged and honored, and then they get integrated, you know? So I think that's great to realize. Oh, that was Jackie. Sorry, that was Jackie that shared that.
I wanted to say something real quick, Brian.
Yeah,
I think,
go ahead.
you know, I was thinking what you were saying, you know, when you translate it differently, when something feels like fear or anxiety,
Yeah.
you translate it to excitement, you know, and you often see in sporting,
Yep.
you know, football and different, you know, you see them jumping around, you
Right.
know, when they're real, you know, that they're probably feeling anxious, but
Uh-huh.
it translates into this physical shift, like you do something different physically. And I think things like that can help. They do for me. I've
Mhm.
had a huge fear of public speaking for a long time, and I had to do it all the time. And so, you know, just doing something different when going to that situation than I'd done before. You know, maybe it's some scream therapy in the car, or it's just looking at it differently and say, I'm not going to do it the same way I did last time. So breaking that pattern, and then translating it as excitement and stepping out, because the fear doesn't always go away. You got to step out, even though you might feel afraid, but you can translate it as something else. At least that's what I found works for me.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh, I
and
got to drop a gem. Go ahead, you first.
well, just quick, I
Gem and
mean,
I'll be done.
we got to give a quick shout out to the breath because you guys know I'm a big fan of the breath, and the breath is a really powerful way when you're feeling anxiety, you know, really deepening your breath, slowing down, deepening your breath, to shift that. So just want to add that one.
So true.
Mhm.
The thing I was going to add on is framing. Like often anxiety comes to how we frame stuff, right? Because life presents itself, there's facts, and then how we frame it. I heard a great guy give this analogy. For anybody want to check him out, Myron Golden, great teacher. But he, he explained how you've got facts and then you've got a positive aspect and a negative aspect. Whatever you focus on, that's how you're framing the fact. So you focus on positive aspect of it, you frame it positively. Negative, frame it negative. But what I loved is how he went through how it affects us. When you're framing the fact negatively, it actually goes from the head to the heart. And it disempowers, creates anxiety that stops the hand, right? Is how he explained it. So not only do you feel the anxiety and it disempowers, but it typically keeps you from acting. But they said when you're looking at the positive aspect and frame the fact, it actually brings an energy that empowers and gives energy to the heart, and then action can ensue. So often it's uncovering how we're framing things. It's uncovering where our focus is and undoing, deconstructing, and replacing those focuses with a different style of framing. Now, the practices that work to do that, that's the exploration. Like if you want to have long terms where you're facing the same things and no longer struggling with them, that kind of change. I think that process looks like what I just described. Decompiling in, letting go of that negative framework and replacing it with something else. So just wanted to share that last thing.
Okay, Marissa wants to share, and then we'll go to Brandy Lynn after that.
Hi.
Hey, Marissa, great to have you here.
Hey. So I want to speak on, on the pattern of breaking the pattern of, some of fear and anxiety comes up when speaking. So I want to kind of put it out there, kind of what Jacob was saying, where, just expressing my vulnerability and that humility that my heart is racing just by speaking in front of a new group. And so I find this happen a lot. And I too find that by being able to just express that, it helps me be able to feel better about it and just kind of go and flow with it. So Brian had asked me if I wanted to ask a question. Here I am, my heart's racing. I'm like, I want to be part of this. And at the same time, I'm thinking too much of how I'm going to say something or how I want to share something. And so that's my own fear that comes up. And so when Kathy was talking about breaking the pattern of this fear, and it's my chance to, come in with this and feel into it and express how I'm feeling. And yeah, it is, I'll honor myself in this where I am. It's showing growth. I also just recently started this with this group called Toastmasters. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of this, but it's this group that helps you be able to build confidence or kind of whatever you want and to be able to speak and publicly and whatnot. And that's my goal. I want to be able to speak publicly and remove that fear and anxiety in my language and my voice. And so I feel better about speaking, but and yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to do that. So
You just did a great job.
Excellent job.
I think
Yep.
I just want to say something in reflection of that, because it goes back to this thing about the guidance, right? Which I think that's what, if anything, like above anything else, I think that's what brings John and I together, is our dedication to the guidance, the inner guidance. And the inner guidance is every moment. It's not like, I mean, if you're kind of in and out, then it's, maybe you don't hear for a year or maybe hear for a month, but the intention is to be with it every moment, because it's definitely there every moment. We might not be there every moment, but it's there every moment. And so the more that you attune to this inner guidance, I was telling this example of I was listening to this podcast, and this guy's like some kind of a neuroscientist or something, and he goes, there's no memories in the brain. There's no storage of memories in the brain. Scientists can't find any memories in the brain. There's nothing there. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. He's like, no, there's no memories in the brain. There's research, they can't find anything. And he goes, well, then how are we thinking about this stuff? How do we remember things then if there's nothing stored in the brain? And he says it's like live streaming, which I thought was like a great way of explaining it. So basically the point is like, you're just present, and then you're tuning in to God or to the creator or to whatever you want to call it, right? You're tuning into that higher intelligence. And how do you know what to say? Because you're just listening to what to say in the moment itself. And the more you tune into the guidance, the more you know what to say in the moment, and you're not thinking ahead, you're just here in the moment. And then it's like, well, how do I know what to do? You just listen to the guidance. How do I know which direction to go? You listen to the guidance, so everything is in the moment, and everything is like being live streamed and listening to the guidance. And that's the practice, and like, I think what John was saying is like, when I asked him earlier, like, how do you get there? Well, first have the desire to get there, have the desire to tune into the guidance, right? And be able to like listen to it and be humble, and it's kind of like being in a state of continual prayer, so it's like, God, what should I say now? What should I do now? What should I think now? Which direction should I go here, right? And maybe little things you don't think it's so important, but then bigger things, maybe you're listening more deeply. But the point is like that guidance is available. And what I like to tell people about speaking, like a group like this, because there's no need to speak. It's fine if you don't speak. It's fine if you do speak, right? But do you have medicine that would be valuable for the group? right? So it's kind of like listening. Do I have something to share that would be valuable for the group? Maybe I have a question that other people have the same question, and that would be helpful to know the answer, or maybe it's just my personal question, but it really would help me to know the answer. Or maybe there's some wisdom that I got about this question that I could help the group would be, because we all have our unique, we're all unique in our own way, and have something that other people can learn from. So that's really valuable to kind of get out of this kind of like, what do I say to make it perfect? How do I, it's like, just kind of listen. Because when I felt you, Marissa, I felt, and Jeff, I felt like you guys were just being authentic to the moment. You're just kind of, okay, I'm just going to say what I'm feeling. And Jacob and everybody tonight, I'm just sharing, Brandy Lynn, everybody, I'm just sharing what I'm feeling in the moment, right? What's alive, what's true for me. I think as long as you do that, because what people really want to hear is they want to feel like somebody's, like, if you think of like what do people always complain about, like politicians, for example? Oh, they're fake, they're not being honest, they're not being genuine. Like, people just want to feel somebody being genuine and just saying what's authentic and what's true for them. So I think that's, if you're true to that in the moment, that's really gonna make an impact on people. Okay, Brandy Lynn.
Marissa, thank you so much for sharing. I felt that. I feel that on a very real level. And it made, like, this conversation has made me think about this wave in the spiritual community. And once I say it, you guys will all know the toxic positivity. Okay, so I have spent a majority of my life resting in the silver lining. And so I personally have been accused of being in that toxic positivity wave. And I almost like beat myself up about it. Like, yeah, everything is falling to pieces, but at least I have. And the attitude of gratitude, and just like, those are the ways that help me grow. And it wasn't until I started getting with others in the spiritual community that were not doing their work, but were relying on someone else's energy to push them through. Like, they had the parts, they could speak the part, act the part, do the part. They pull out their nice little singing bowls and voila, they were just another false prophet. Like, I grew up seeing in the Pentecostal church and in other religions, like, and believe me, you find it in the spiritual community as well, right? You find yogis that use this to sexually exploit their members. However, when you are vibing on a certain level, your spirit will antagonize their demons. And it wasn't until like this conversation right now that I got this aha moment. Like, no, toxic positivity, you guys, I mean, unless you can help me out with this, I'm thinking in my spirit, like, that is a lie to keep me down. Like, just like you were saying, John, in that Byron Gold of like, there's the facts and there's a positive way of thinking about it and a negative way of thinking about it. Well, I make a conscious choice to think about it on the positive aspect. And it's like, everybody talking about this toxic positivity is just a crutch for them not to change. And they can stay there, and that's okay. You can vibe there, that's your journey. But I am no longer to subject myself to this middle of the road hum-ha, like accepting the negative on a grand scope forever, like, because it's killing my spirit, and it has killed my spirit and my voice. And I have stopped saying those things that I should say that other people won't say, and they're just buying it, man. They are just taking it in like soda drinks, you know, like give me more. No, your toxic negativity is bothering my toxic positivity, and I want nothing more of it, is kind of what I'm thinking. So thank you so much for sharing that, because that kind of just shifted in my brain today, like right now, just like, okay, so toxic positivity, I just never understood it before. I don't understand it now, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I mean, what are your thoughts about that, about that?
That's a good exploration. You know, I'm of the mind that finding what works for you is the objective. In that if you can connect to that divine power, it will show you that way that works for you. But that way for me might not look the way it is for you, right? In other words, where you're guided doesn't mean I got to walk the same path, and vice versa. So, all that to say, I can only share with you what I've gotten on that topic. Besides framing, like it is valid to see negative on a fact, just as valid to see positive around a fact. It's a matter of focus and what you choose and how you frame that fact that creates it. Neither of them are better than the other in the sense of, oh, you're wrong or bad for doing that. No, they're the tools that you paint with, right? Or they're the ingredients. Like every fact comes with them, polarity, right? So because of that, it really becomes like you get to be the creator of, okay, how am I going to frame things? And then when you see that you're feeling anxiety, it's the indicator, wow, I framed something to do with this in a negative way. Do I like it? Is it stopping me from what I want to do? If so, then I got to do something about it, right? Um, so going back to your question about the toxic negativity or positivity, to me, it's more about what, again, what works for you. And if it is something that, if whatever you're choosing is keeping you from doing something that you want to do, right? Meaning, like they call it spiritual bypassing. Oh, I'm just gonna think about the gratitude. My house is falling apart, and I can't pay my bills, and I can't walk, and I'm sick, and I'm eating ice cream. I'm gonna be grateful for my ice cream, right? It's like, okay, you can do that, but is it helping you move forward to where you want to be? No. Okay, you keep focusing on that, and it's probably not gonna end well, right? Um, that's you could call that toxic positivity, perhaps. I don't know. But the point is if it's disempowering, if it's not leading you to something that works and bringing you into a place that not only feels good for just the moment, but feels sustainably good to where you can actually navigate whatever's coming in a way that's empowering. That to me, and not only just empowering, sometimes, believe it or not, feeling weakness has bliss in it. Like feeling the aspect of us that feels like the child that people call inner child work, like going to that part. There'd be no father without the son. There'd be no strong without the weak. Like it's bringing those parts into integration that allow us in accepting those parts of weakness, accepting those parts of anxiety, the parts that choose that, and bringing them back in to let them know it's okay, right? I feel like that's another part of the work. And if you're so focused or stuck on, oh, I got to use this practice and I got to run from everything else, that's probably not healthy, right? It's creating resistance and just this weird dysfunctional way of being, I think, that as far as sustainability doesn't last, will it typically end in crash and burning. So yeah, if somebody's engaged in what you're talking about in a toxic way, they'll probably get sick eventually. If does that address your question? I don't know if that even helped.
Yeah, I'm learning to find balance. Just trying to find how to live in my best life. And I know that I'm not there yet, but I know I will be. And just
That's positivity. That's
growing
not
and
toxic.
learning. Okay. And the spiritual bypass, like how to recognize when I'm
Okay,
doing
so let me see if
myself.
I can add a little something to it. So the way I like the way John was going with that. So he's like, there's a fact, and then there's how you frame the fact, right? So there's a fact, then there's how you frame the fact. How do you frame the fact? Well, you definitely want to frame the fact in a positive way. So that's good use of positivity. You want to frame it because that's gonna, if you frame it in a positive way, that's gonna move you in a positive direction. If you use positivity to ignore the fact, then that's a problem. That's what we call spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. So you don't want to ignore the fact. Be like, okay, this is the fact. Now, how do I frame it in a positive way without ignoring it? So that I think that's the distinction between the two things.
Would
And
it be
sometimes framing that fact, there's limitations on what we can do, right? Like trying to be positive around it, trying to do whatever, uncover the negative. Like there's, when I say limitations on what we can do, I mean from the conscious mind level. Like the level of consciousness that created can't undo it, can't solve it, right? That kind of us. But
so
when
is
we
it
go to
like
that,
my life is a dumpster fire right now, but I've got ice cream and I love ice cream. And I've got my
That's
cat.
right.
My cat is wonderful. And it's on fire right now, but I know that fire can't burn forever. So,
That's right.
or I
Yeah.
could take some of that fire and go ahead and cook myself some steak or
Right.
fish might be better today. Like that.
S- Sometimes I think negativity, being able to see the negativity and face it, can actually motivate us to take necessary action to change the situation. Go put the damn cat out. Oh my God, I don't want my cat to die. You know, oh my God, I can't pay my bills. Go figure it out. Go get some help. Go do something. Find a way. Because you can frame it as positive as you want, but it won't change until you take some action, right? So something's got to motivate us. So that's what I meant by like, okay, there's nothing wrong with any of them, but sometimes it's almost like in order to know how to frame something, you can depend on what you've been working with all this time that got you in the situation you're in, or you can transcend that, right? And let something else help you frame it. Whether that means in relationship with somebody to help you, whether that means in prayer and meditation, whether that means accessing higher levels of consciousness, your guides, the great I am, Jesus, whatever. Find something that helps you reframe it because it ain't working the way you're doing it. Right? I think often we have to get to that point where we're like, okay, enough. This ain't working. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I need help. I had to get there. So that was the other thing I wanted to say.
Well, let's wind it down, y'all. This has been awesome. Thanks everybody for sharing authentically and vulnerably. Let's have just a few announcements here to close out. Let's start out with this event. Kathy tends to be our spokesperson, so I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to tell y'all about our event in Atlanta on October 26th.
Yes,
Go ahead,
thank you,
Kathy.
Brian. So as Brian brought us back to the breath, it is called Breath of Life. And it's really an amazing chance for Brian and Annie and Kathy and John to get together. So I'm incredibly happy for that reunion. But it'll be here in Atlanta, and many of you have probably done, or if you haven't, you should do Brian and Annie's breath work, rebirthing breath work. Changed my life in many ways. So we start the beautiful event with that, with the rebirthing breath work here in Atlanta. And then John will do live music if you've experienced that as well. It's channeled, it's very in the moment, and it just sort of moves the breath work. And then we will step into a full live concert that John will have some beautiful players with him and is going to play and share some new music from his new album and some old favorites as well. So that all happens on October 26th, Breath of Life here in Atlanta at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. I'll put the here actually. And if you can't make it, we will have the concert streaming. You can't really stream rebirthing breathwork. You have to be present for that. But the concert, you could also buy a ticket to just come to that if you're out of town or something. So this to me is really exciting because it's just, we haven't seen them since Joah came into this world. So it's just going to be an opportunity to celebrate together, to really face some of the beautiful things we've talked about on this call, the anxieties, releasing them. What do we want to feel? Calling those things in through the breath work, and then stepping into celebration of music. That's my description.
Well said. Well said. Okay, a
So I
couple
hope
other.
you guys can join us.
Yeah, and this will be this gets shared as a podcast and also on the YouTube channel. So those of you who are hearing this later, you are welcome to join us as well. Speaking of which, feel free to invite your friends to join us here, expand and grow the circle with good people. If you have any themes or things you want to explore, topics you want to explore, feel free to let me know. I heard a good topic today. I'll share it later, but someone gave me an idea for a topic that's alive in the world right now. I do personal coaching and couples coaching. I lead a men's mastermind group. We have a Telegram group. We have a couple events coming up. We have a New Year's event in Black Mountain. I have some events coming up. I don't have the dates right here, but I'm working on finalizing something for Asheville, a breathwork for Asheville, breathwork for Boone. I know that's August 12th. October 12th. Oh yeah, and he put the link in there for the events. Princeton, West Virginia, and then Atlanta, Georgia with John and Kathy. So
1 month from tonight.
1 month from tonight.
26th.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you all so much for being here. And like I always say, like it wouldn't be really fun without you all. Special thank you to John and Kathy for sharing their wisdom with us. We love y'all, appreciate y'all so much. And let's carry this energy forward. Oh, if you're here live, we are doing a 1-day retreat this Saturday as well. A lot of these guys will be here. You're welcome to join us. Okay, love y'all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Much love. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, love you guys.
Thank you.